Most World Cup stadiums are lucky if they get one immortal moment. Mexico City got an archive. One stadium gave the tournament Brazil 1970, Maradona 1986, two World Cup finals, the game of the century, and the opening match of 2026. In 1970, Brazil beat Italy 4-1 here, and Pele's last World Cup became one of football's cleanest memories. In 1986, Diego Maradona turned one match against England into two opposite legends, the hand of God and the goal of the century. Then, on 11 June 2026, the World Cup came back again. Mexico beat South Africa 2-0, but the deeper story was the stage. The tournament opened its biggest ever edition by walking back into its old archive. So the real question is not, what happened in Mexico City? The real question is, why does World Cup history keep returning here? The answer is not just passion. Many cities love football. It is not just size. Many cities have large stadiums. Mexico City became different because it combined five things at once: a national capital, high-altitude atmosphere, a giant football bowl, broadcast-era images, and repeated proof that the city could stage football at world scale. That combination turned memory into infrastructure. After 1970, the city was no longer just a host. After 1986, it was no longer just a host again. It became a place the World Cup could return to when it wanted continuity, symbolism, and a sense that the past was still sitting in the stands. Mexico City did not just host World Cup history. It turned World Cup history into infrastructure. Start with the map. Mexico City is not a coastal gateway like Rio de Janeiro, Barcelona, or Los Angeles. It sits inland, high in the Valley of Mexico, around 2,240 meters above sea level. That matters. At this altitude, the air is thinner. The ball travels differently. Players feel the match in their lungs. The stadium is not just a venue, it is a physical condition. But altitude is only one layer. Mexico City is also the capital. That gives it ceremony, media attention, government coordination, hotels, transport pressure, national symbolism, and a deep emotional connection to the Mexican national team. The wider Valley of Mexico had more than 21.8 million residents in 2020. So when the World Cup comes here, it does not feel like it is visiting a neutral sports site. It feels like it has entered the country's central stage. The map explains the first part of the answer. Mexico City could make a match feel national, physical, and theatrical at the same time. But the city needed a machine to concentrate that feeling. That machine was Estadio Azteca, now used in FIFA tournament language as Mexico City Stadium. The stadium opened in 1966, 4 years before Mexico hosted the 1970 World Cup. It was designed by Pedro Ramirez Vázquez and Rafael Midges Alcereca, and the official stadium history emphasizes two ideas: a large cantilevered roof and visibility for spectators from every location. That is important because the Azteca was not a small local ground that accidentally became famous. It was built as a mass stage, a place for more than a match, a place for a crowd, a ceremony, a camera, and a national image. This is where many stadium stories fail. They get the event, but they do not hold the image. Mexico City's stadium held the image. The huge bowl, the steep stands, the high sky, the noise, the altitude, the national team identity, the capital city symbolism, all of it made the match feel bigger than the score. Then 1970 arrived, and the machine found its myth. Mexico 1970 mattered because it looked like the future. It came at the moment when television was changing how the world remembered sport. The images were brighter, the colors were stronger, and the football helped. At the Azteca, Italy and West Germany played the kind of match that makes a stadium feel permanent. The semi-final ended 4-3 after extra time. 5 goals came after the 90th minute. The match became known as the game of the century. That kind of nickname can be exaggerated. But in this case, the point is not only the quality of the match. The point is that the stadium became attached to the phrase. 4 days later, the final gave the place another layer. Brazil beat Italy 4-1. Pele scored. Gerson scored. Jairzinho scored. Carlos Alberto finished one of the most famous team goals in World Cup history. Brazil's 1970 team became a shorthand for beautiful football, and Mexico City became the frame around the image. This is where the city changed category. It was no longer just the place where the tournament happened. It became part of how the tournament was remembered. Then came the twist. Mexico was not originally supposed to host the 1986 World Cup. Colombia had been selected, but the tournament moved after Colombia could not meet the hosting demands. Mexico stepped in. That decision matters because it shows why old infrastructure is powerful. Mexico already had stadiums. It already had experience. And Mexico City already had the Azteca. So the World Cup returned to a place that had already proved itself. And then 1986 made the memory even heavier. On 22 June, Argentina played England in the quarterfinal at the Azteca. Maradona's first goal became one of the most controversial goals in football history. His second became one of the most admired. One match gave the stadium 2 opposite memories: injustice and genius, argument and beauty, scandal and art. That is why the place stayed alive in global football imagination. A week later, Argentina beat West Germany 3-2 in the final. Maradona lifted the trophy. The same stadium that framed Pele's last World Cup in 1970 now framed Maradona's defining tournament in 1986. Very few cities get one football immortal. Mexico City got 2 eras. But memory alone does not host a modern World Cup. A city also needs an event machine. It needs airports, hotels, security, transport, training sites, media capacity, fan zones, emergency planning, and the ability to absorb international attention without pretending the costs are invisible. Mexico City has the kind of capital city ecosystem needed for that, but not in a clean postcard way. It is a giant, unequal, pressured megacity. Traffic, policing, public space, renovation costs, and access all matter. They concentrate attention, money, and strain. That is part of the honest story. But from a tournament organizing point of view, Mexico City offers something rare: national symbolism, a proven football cathedral, and a metro region scale large enough to make the World Cup feel like a civic event, not just a sports booking. The stadium holds the match. The city holds the meaning. That combination is why the story did not end in 1986. The 2026 World Cup is different from 1970 and 1986. It is shared by 3 countries: Canada, Mexico, and the United States. It is the first edition with 48 teams. It is spread across a continent. In that kind of tournament, the final can go to a newer, larger, more corporate stadium. But the opening match needs something else. It needs a doorway. And Mexico City offered the doorway. When Mexico City Stadium opened the 2026 tournament, the new format connected itself to the old mythology. Mexico's 2-0 win over South Africa gave the night a result, but the deeper image was older than the scoreline. The future of the World Cup began in a place where Pele, Maradona, Brazil 1970, Argentina 1986, the game of the century and decades of Mexican football memory were already waiting. That is why the return matters. 2026 did not erase the old story. It used it. So what is Mexico City's formula? It is not only a stadium. Many cities have stadiums. It is not only a crowd. Many places are loud. It is not only history. Many old venues have history. Mexico City is hard to copy because 5 layers reinforce each other. Capital city, high-altitude valley, mass stadium, broadcast era images, accumulated memory. Each layer makes the next one more believable. The first World Cup proved the stage. The second World Cup deepened the myths. The third World Cup reused the myth as a global opening image. That is repeated conversion. So why does World Cup history keep returning to Mexico City? Because some places host a tournament once. Mexico City hosts it twice, first in logistics, then in imagination. It had the capital, the altitude, the crowd, and the stadium. Then 1970 gave it Pele. 1986 gave it Maradona. 2026 gave it the opening of a new World Cup era. Mexico City did not simply receive great football moments. It stored them. And when the World Cup wanted the future to enter through the past, it came back here.